Module 1. Extreme Survival Tactics. Whenever you're dealing with a survival situation, you need to be intensely aware of the fact that the situation will be fluid. No matter how much time you've invested in thinking of ways you might survive the most terrifying situations, those situations will always be different than you envisioned when they unfold. Among the most intensely fearful situations are those that involve riots. Urban uproar can occur for almost any imaginable reason, from complex political situations to the local sports team losing a game. There are plenty of people out there who prepare for survival situations by stocking up on camping supplies, learning bushcraft techniques, and so forth. For the vast majority of people, however, survival situations will involve urban landscapes, and those situations require different strategies, tactics, and tools. Urban uproar. There are a few things about riots that actually give you advantages when dealing with these situations. The full force of the riot can take a while to get going. Riots are oftentimes confined to specific areas of a city. Riots can be escaped by physically removing yourself from the area closest to the violence. When you're working through scenarios involving urban rioting, be aware of the fact that most riots don't start out where people likely think there would be a danger of such situation developing. When the local college students are out on the street protesting something, it's very unlikely to develop into a riot. Riots oftentimes erupt because of long-term political conflicts that are finally pushed past the breaking point by a particular event. This event will oftentimes be in the news. It may be an incident of police brutality, a change in a government policy, a meeting of a particular organization that is not popular, or it may be some other event that sets the riot off, but you should have some warning that there could be trouble on the horizon. When these riots start up, you may be trapped in your home, or you may be out and about. We'll start out with what to do if you're trapped in a home. Why a bunker isn't always what you need. There are a lot of people out there who want to sell you a lot of products designed to help you build your own bunker. Some of these products are quite good, and some of the justifications that people have for building what amounts to a bunker in their home are actually good ones. Hunkering down is not always the best policy for a survival situation, however. A bunker, in fact, may be the absolute worst thing to rely upon during a riot. The bunker may keep you safe if somebody breaks through the front door in your home and can't get to your safe room, of course. But that might not be the kind of protection that is optimal for this situation. In any situation where urban violence is a threat, the best survival setup is the one that gives you options. You should have a survival setup that consists of tools you can use and tactics that you can use to address the situation. One of the primary tactics in an urban riot that may just save your life and that you should work hard on is finding ways to escape. It might be tempting to get into your safe room and lock the door, but remember that somebody may decide to torch your building at some point, which means that you'll basically be trying to keep safe by hiding out in what amounts to a death trap. You should have an option to escape. Some of the tools that you can use to make sure that you have a way out include your fire escape, collapsible ladders, easy access to transportation, a set meeting place for friends and family, communications equipment that can help you gather information on the situation, a bug out bag. If being prepared for bad situations is something in which you have an interest, you probably have some of these tools already. These can be very easily integrated into part of your survival setup. Between having a bag ready to go with all the supplies that you'll need to flee the city, communications equipment that can let you know the movements of the riot, and a set meeting place so you can gather together with everybody going with you without having to get in touch with them over potentially jammed phone lines, you should have all of the options that you need. Your home, of course, should be stocked up with extra water, food, medical supplies, and all of the other emergency provisions that intelligent people keep in their homes. In the event of a riot, utilities could be cut to the areas affected for a very long time. The key element in having a good survival setup is making certain that your survival setup does not require you to remain in your house or apartment. If there's a riot going on, staying in your house or apartment may be the absolute worst course of action you could possibly take. Covert crowd control tactics. The large crowds that assemble when a riot is underway can be terrifying. They can be extremely irrational, randomly violent, and even in situations where you may have been generally in agreement with whatever political cause set off the riot, that doesn't mean that the people involved in the riot are going to identify you as an ally. They may very well identify you as a target. At some point, if there is a riot going on near your home, it's likely that you're going to have to deal with that crowd in the worst possible way, trying to get through them. To do this successfully, you have to understand the psychology of large crowds. Here are some techniques that you can use to, for all intents and purposes, control the behavior of that crowd in a way that could keep you alive. Move with the current. In any large crowd, movement tends to take on a dynamic similar to the way rivers and streams work. If you want to be less charitable about it, crowds also take on a dynamic similar to the way herds of cows move. Everybody tends to follow each other in the same direction. In a riot, anybody moving against the direction that the crowd is moving in is immediately going to stand out. Likewise, anyone moving faster than the crowd, i.e. running for their lives, is going to stand out to the crowd. The first step in becoming a target is standing out among the crowd. One clever psychological trick you can use to get away from a crowd that may be headed for a confrontation with the police or that may become suddenly dangerous to you and your family is to move with them for as long as possible and gradually break away in a way that is unnoticeable. The idea is to not stand out at all, to blend in as much as possible, and to make certain that getting out of the situation doesn't call attention to you or anyone you are with. Beware your clothing. Don't let the fact that you're probably reading this on an enormously impressive piece of technology fool you. Human beings are still extremely tribal creatures. The way you look is going to make a big difference in how people in the crowd that you have to move through react to you. It's also going to make a big difference in terms of how the police act towards you if you happen to have conflict with law enforcement on your way out. To make certain that you are as inconspicuous as possible, you should know the following about clothing and what it signals. One of the ironies of a protest is that many of the protesters and the police officers with whom they are having conflicts are going to look quite similar. The people who are, for lack of a better term, professional protesters tend to gravitate toward military-style clothing, particularly black clothing. Black bandanas tied across the face bandit style are very popular with such groups. Avoid wearing this type of clothing. Your survival gear may very well include BDUs and other military type clothing. You're much better off trying to get out of the area affected by the riot wearing a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. Police will identify you as one of the miscreants involved in the riot if you look like these people, and the people causing trouble in the riot may very well try to get you involved in some of the violence and may react to you extremely negatively if you point out that you're not one of them. In some situations, you're going to have to make something of a compromise here. If you have a gas mask or a helmet, you very well may want to don them before you take off into the crowd. Unfortunately, this may make you a target. Police who see protesters in gas masks may, quite logically, assume that these protesters are ready and willing to engage in violence with the police. If the crowd is not organized at all and has just become randomly violent, the fact that you have those items may make you a target, as people may want to take them from you. If somebody tries to take away your equipment, just give it to them and get out. Remember ways to get information. It's become very popular for protesters to communicate with one another on social media outlets while a protest is going on. In addition to monitoring official media, make sure you pay attention to sites such as Facebook, Twitter, and others where protesters may be communicating information about where they're going to be moving, how the police are responding to them, and so forth. This could very well give you an advantage in getting out of the area. Once you know where the protesters are headed, simply head in the opposite direction. Your car. If possible, do use your vehicle to get out of the area of a riot. It's the fastest way to get out, and provided you don't end up in the middle of an enormous crowd, it offers you a lot of protection. There's one thing you have to keep in mind at all times when using a vehicle, however. If you are approaching a police barricade in your vehicle and you do not slow or stop as ordered, the police officers will regard you as a threat. There is only one implication of them regarding you as a threat you need to understand. They will shoot you. If you're going to take your vehicle out of the city, be aware of where the riot is moving, where the police have barricaded streets, and stay well clear of those areas. Ideally, you should try to hit a major traffic artery, such as a freeway, and just keep moving until you are far enough away from the riot to be safe. If your car is stopped by rioters, and if they start trying to commandeer it, just get out and get away. You can always replace a car, but you cannot replace your life. The one exception to this is if it is possible for you to get through the crowd of rioters without them being able to physically stop, roll over, or otherwise destroy your vehicle. How you decide to deal with the protesters trying to obstruct you is entirely up to you and is completely dependent upon the situation. But remember that you should value staying alive above anything else. What you shouldn't do when trying to prevent an attack by a mob. A lot of people who are interested in preparing for survival situations do so in part by having weapons available. Before you reach for a weapon, you have to understand that a riot is an extremely fluid situation and that you are not likely to know what the entire situation is if you're caught up in the crowd. The two biggest dangers you face as far as weapons and being in a riot situation go are having the police misidentify you as a threat to them and having someone in the crowd try and take your weapon from you and possibly use it against you. You also have to take into account the self-defense laws that apply in your jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions require you to try to run before using deadly force to defend yourself. Other jurisdictions do not. You need to be aware of the situation wherever you are located before you make the decision to use a weapon to defend yourself. Whether or not you actually use that weapon, however, you need to make certain that it is not making you a target. Be wary of carrying anything that may look like a long gun or an actual long gun in a riot situation. Rioters may identify you as a police officer or as a tempting target. As you have a weapon they can take away from you. Police officers may quite reasonably assume that the fact that you are in a crowd of rioters with a weapon makes you an extremely deadly threat. You do not want to appear as a deadly threat to the police. Putting all political and social thought on the matter aside, you do not want to try and stand your ground if you are confronted by a crowd in a mob. There are tactics that you can use to try and get out of the situation. The best of all tactics is simply try to get away however you can. Harkening back to the way people behave when they are in crowds, be aware of the fact that if you start running full steam, you're going to activate a sort of chase instinct in the crowd. They will most likely be able to run you down. Try to talk your way out of the situation, and, if necessary, try and bribe your way out of the situation with cash or whatever possessions you have on you that the crowd may want. Once you do get out of the situation, remove yourself from proximity to the crowd as quickly as possible. If you do have to fight, make certain that you commit yourself. There is absolutely no way to tell a person how a situation like this will turn out. The only thing you can say for sure about it is that it will be terrifying. If the crowd will not back off, however, you may have to make it apparent to them that you are too much of a threat and too determined to survive to be a good victim. The only people skill you need to help you in any situation. If there's one people skill that's going to keep you alive in a situation like this, it is confidence. Just as appearing confident can keep you out of a bad situation in a bad part of the city, appearing confident can keep you out of bad situations in a riot. As just an example of this, you may have noticed that journalists can oftentimes manage to move through a crowd of rioters without being harmed or even threatened. In part, this is likely due to the fact that they appear as if they have a reason to be there, as if they don't expect to be attacked, and that they do not appear to be afraid. You'll want to adopt this attitude. Be aware of the threat around you, but don't let it intimidate you. If you appear intimidated, it's going to make you a target. It makes it very obvious that you do not want to be there, and therefore, that you are not one of the crowd. Because you are simply trying to survive and get clear, you can focus on that task and not on how genuinely terrifying it might be to be around such an urban violence. Concentrate on what you're trying to do. Make sure you take care of everything you need to do to realize your goal and just get out. As long as you can focus on the task at hand, you'll appear to others as if you have a purpose in being there, and that can make all the difference in not getting accosted. A great many people who fall under the definition of preppers concentrate on dealing with conflict by escalating the force to deadly levels immediately. In truth, your people skills and your ability to read the people you run into while you are trying to get out of a riot situation will generally get you a lot farther than wanting to turn everything into a fight. Blend in, look like you have a purpose, do not invite or take invitations to conflict, and above all things, only engage in conflict when it is the absolute last resort. If you can develop the sort of skills that allow you to resolve conflicts peacefully, it just might keep you in one piece while you're trying to flee one of these deadly situations. The one bag blueprint you must have for every member of your family. If you have a family or roommates who are, for all intents and purposes, your family, you need to make certain that all of you are prepared to get out of a situation where urban violence has erupted. You should all have the equipment to get out individually without needing everybody to gather up together in order for you all to have what you need. This means having a bug out bag. That bag should contain maps of the area with meeting places marked, enough water to get at least a few miles in an urban environment, a ready source of energy such as protein bars or trail mix, a first aid kit, equipment for dealing with tear gas, portable two-way radios for communication. Where the tear gas element is concerned, there's an easy way to handle it. You can go down to a drugstore and get any type of antacid. Maalox works well. Dilute this to a 50-50 mixture with water in a spray bottle. If you are sprayed or otherwise come into contact with tear gas, spray the mixture on your face and anywhere else you might have been sprayed to neutralize it. If you happen to be hit with pepper spray, this mixture will not neutralize it. The only thing you can do is flush it away with water. While using up your drinking water may not be advisable, once you have pepper spray in your eyes, nose, and mouth, you're going to do it simply because of the pain involved. Don't swallow the water that you're rinsing yourself off with, but use the water to flush out your eyes, mucous membranes, and your face so that the pepper spray is at least removed from your skin. Your first aid kit should include nitrile gloves so that you can help other people who have been sprayed. Carry a bandana with you so that you can tie it over your nose and face in the event that you run into an area that has been sprayed with tear gas. You can wet the bandana in either apple cider or lemon juice to increase the efficiency in which it neutralizes gas. If you wear contact lenses, take them out before fleeing. If tear gas gets on your contact lenses, it's going to incapacitate you completely. Tight-fitting goggles, even the types of goggles you use for snorkeling or diving, can provide excellent protection against tear gas getting into your eyes. The apple cider or lemon juice on your bandana is not going to last very long. Ideally, you should soak it before you leave your home and store it in a plastic bag so that it stays wet. When you pull it out and use it, however, do not try to walk through a cloud of tear gas with it. Immediately move to a higher ground. Tear gas is heavier than air, so it will settle at ground level, and if you get to an elevation, it will thin out. Use the radios or text. If you're in a situation where violence has erupted, it's likely that communications are going to go down very quickly. Text messages have a much better chance of getting through jammed phone lines than calls or communications over the internet. You can also purchase handheld radios that operate on the family radio service. This will give you quite a bit of range, up to a few miles, and allow you to communicate with your friends and family if you become separated. There are also people who relay messages over these radios, so you may be able to rely upon that in a bad situation. Those maps you put in your backpack should have gathering places marked. Select places that are not likely to be places where rioters are going to gather. Avoid banks, public buildings, government buildings, and so forth. Ideally, you should pick somewhat out-of-the-way places that are close to your house or apartment where your family can gather. This not only gives you a place where you can expect family members to show up, it also ensures that as those family members get closer to the area where you are to gather, they should come in range of your radio at some point. Do not rely on electronic maps or GPS systems to navigate an emergency situation. You should also make an effort to walk to all of those gathering places once in a while so that you know all the different routes you can take in a bad situation. Understanding what you face. In a situation involving urban uproar, realize that you're going to be dealing with a scenario that is inherently out of control. Things will get chaotic very quickly. Property will get destroyed. People will get assaulted, and the police will most likely get extremely violent when dealing with the protesters. The best survival strategy is to get out. A bunker in these situations is not likely to do you a lot of good unless it is your absolute last resort. If you do have to hunker down for a while in your home, wait for the crowd to pass and wait for the streets to clear. Even if it seems like it's calming down, get to a safe location far away from the violence. Even though whatever crowd is causing the violence may have moved onto a different part of the city, it's always better to watch the crowd calm down on television far away from the heart of the violence than it is to stay in your home and hope that the crowd does not make a return to your neighborhood. Riots are very real threats in urban areas. If you do have reason to believe that there is something going on politically or socially that could lead to violence, be prepared to get out. Make sure you brief everybody in your family or in your household on what the plan is so that everybody knows what they are going to do the minute a bad situation develops. The faster you act, the better your chances of survival. Have your bug out bag ready to go. Know the maps that you have set up with your family and have the equipment you need to deal with threats such as tear gas. Take your car if you can, but if you cannot do so safely, get out on foot. You may come back to a burned out apartment and a destroyed vehicle, but the important thing is that you make it back and that you don't get caught up in a situation that could cost you your life. Recap. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of this module. Do not forget this information as it will be crucial when a disaster strikes. 1. Keep your options open in case of riots. Don't rely on a bunker to keep safe. Make sure you have plenty of options to flee if necessary. 2. Set up a meeting place with you and your family, as well as a backup for that in case it is compromised. Make sure from time to time they don't forget things like this one. 3. Avoid dressing up in camouflage to be mistaken with a protester. Jeans and a t-shirt will do. 4. If you're lucky enough to be in a car, always go for the highways. That's it for this module, but there are many other things to talk about. Make sure you read every module until the end, and more importantly, that you keep coming back to the recaps and the end of each of them. This will ensure you'll commit to memory all the critical things you need to know to be prepared.